Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the topic is the coronavirus pandemic prophesied in the Bible? Is there a reference in the Bible that you could look into that could suggest that this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is something that has been prophesied in the Bible? It's quite interesting that when Jesus was here about 2,000 years ago, we believe that he was born at 4 BC, and until he ascended to heaven, he performed great miracles and he shared the gospel, especially to his disciples later who became apostles. And he was telling them that the time will come that he would need to go back to where he came from to prepare a place for them. And then he promised that he will come back and take them back to where he is, where he will be. But before that, he prophesied that the many signs will suggest that his return is imminent. And when the disciple asked, "Tell us when this will happen, when will you be back?" And we know that he described the things that will happen just before his coming, and that is described in Matthew chapter 24. And Matthew chapter 24 verse 7, Jesus said to the disciples, "For many nations will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famine and earthquakes in various places." And he goes on with other signs that will need to be fulfilled before his return. Now, if you go to Luke chapter 21, verse 11, again, Luke chapter 21, verse 11, actually I started this recording with the question, is the coronavirus pandemic, something like this, was this prophesied in the Bible? Now let's go to Luke chapter 11, verse 11. Sorry, Luke chapter 21, verse 11. By the way, the answer to that question is yes and no. The Bible, you will not be able to find coronavirus in the Bible. So for that reason, we could say, well, the Bible does not talk about coronavirus, but realizing that coronavirus is one of the pestilences, we should look for a word in the Bible that seem to imply that such a pestilence like coronavirus would happen, the pandemic or outbreak. Well, Luke chapter 21 and verse 11, this is when Jesus told the disciples what will happen just before his coming. And he said, "There will be great earthquakes," which we read earlier from Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. So now Luke chapter 21, verse 11, it says, "There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences." Again, famines and pestilences. "And there will be terrors and great signs from heaven." So, to answer the question that I asked earlier, the answer is yes and no. How is it no? Because there is no mention of coronavirus. But yes, because it speaks about pestilences that will happen in various places. So what do we make of what is happening right now? I was just going through the news, the breaking news today. Some of the top news today is how, in spite of two drastic measures by President Trump to ease the negative effect of this coronavirus pandemic, we have experienced just a few days ago a major drop in the financial market that required what they call the circuit breaker, that it temporarily halts the trade in order for people to take a moment and take in a deep breath and assess what's happening, whether they will continue to sell or buy. So it went down, and there was a record loss. And then Trump suggested there will be a special stimulus package to lift the economy. And then the market became a bullish market, not bear market. But today, and today is Monday, exactly Monday, March 16th. Just yesterday he announced, or the US government announced, that they will lower the interest rate. And so the interest rate is at zero, or not quite, but 0.05. Therefore, it's in the territory of zero. So the interest rate is one of the lowest that it has ever been. So yesterday, the stock market rebounded. It had one of the highest gain, a record gain. But today, what happened? I should say last week, the market rebounded with the hope that the impact of coronavirus pandemic, even if it will be serious, that because of all the countermeasures to boost the economy or stabilize, that the economy would not be as much impacted or negatively impacted. So it rebounded, but what happened today is, with all the outbreaks that are happening around the world, and it's almost impossible to catch up with all the latest breaking news. Not too long ago, I was in Uganda. When I was in Uganda, that was the time when the coronavirus started to spread in Wuhan. And the coronavirus had reached South Korea, and those two countries, so many people were getting infected with this, I would say, deadly disease. At the time I was in Uganda, by the way, now there are over 140 countries with known cases of Uganda. So now more than almost 3/4, except only maybe 1/4 of countries, now nearing 150 countries in the world. And I think it's just a matter of time that almost all the countries will be, people of those countries will be infected by coronavirus. But still, while now in Europe, this coronavirus is creating a havoc. Now it's becoming the epicenter of coronavirus infection. Now, as you know, the coronavirus outbreak is now known as pandemic. In other words, this is a global infection that this coronavirus is causing. Whereas China became the epicenter where the coronavirus started to spread and infected South Korea. And then it reached Europe and Middle East, and we saw a spike of coronavirus cases in Italy and Iran. And now Italy and Iran, with China, the known cases of coronavirus infected people are continuing to increase. In fact, I was listening to news today, And just today and yesterday, close to 3,000 people have contracted, or they have found that they are infected with coronavirus. It's really sad news. I was reading another newspaper today. It says, because there are so many people who are infected with coronavirus, in Italy, unfortunately, people have reached a point where they're unable to provide medical care for everyone. And they have decided that those who have greater chance of recovering, that they will provide medical care. But to those who they believe have less chance of recovering, or has lower chance of recovery from this coronavirus, unfortunately they have decided not to provide care. One news that I heard today is that those who are 80 years and older, they are, instead of providing the same kind of medical care that they provide for younger people, unfortunately, according to this report, they are now left to meet unfortunate fate, because it's simply impossible for them to provide medical care for every single person with known infection of coronavirus. So now we're hearing about what is happening in France, what is happening in Germany, not to mention in the United States. There was a time that, the optimism prevailed, saying that, we're not as affected as some other countries. We have done a good job in keeping this coronavirus outside the country. But since they have since they've been noticing the unknown cases of coronavirus, what I mean by that is they don't know how a person or people contracted coronavirus. Where are the sources of those infections? And this unknown, due to those cases of not being certain as to how they get contracted of this virus, now almost exponentially the number of coronavirus known cases are increasing, even here in the United States. Out of all the continents, it seems like Africa is still least affected by it. Even the country where I was, Uganda, I don't think there is still known case of coronavirus, and I wish that no one would be infected there. But I remember just about a month ago, as I was leaving Uganda, as they were hearing about this outbreak from China, unfortunately the feeling that I had was people were feeling a bit uncomfortable of my presence. I was born in South Korea. I'm not Chinese, but to some people, Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, perhaps they all say you all look alike. So I remember as I was exiting the country, Uganda, the immigration officer, immediately after he handed the passport to me, of course he was wearing a mask and gloves, he sanitized his hand. And I connected from Amsterdam, and I still remember the looks that I got from people. This was when still more known cases of coronavirus were coming from either China or South Korea. And there's some sporadic reports from different Asian countries, but not the kind of outbreaks that we are seeing in Europe. Out of all places, in UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. But about a month ago, I remember the look that I was getting. I felt like, wait a minute, I hope that they don't think that I am a carrier of coronavirus, I'm just sharing this. But just in a matter of just a couple of weeks, we're seeing a spike of this outbreak. And could we have imagined that Europe, where it's comprised of some of the most advanced countries in the world, will now become the epicenter of this pandemic, this unprecedented pandemic, that now people are blocking their borders from people visiting from Europe and other places, including Asia, out of the fear of people who are coming from those regions bringing coronavirus with them. Why is this happening? Can Bible give us a glimpse of why we are experiencing what we're experiencing? In my opinion, the Bible clearly prophesied that things like this would happen as we are nearing the end of this planet Earth. People time to time talk about Armageddon or the doomsday theory, that if this earth is left as we continue to abuse this mother land that we have, somehow that with the global warming and everything that is happening around us, that it's just a matter of time that we will become extinct, because things continue to worsen in every possible ways, whether it be climate or in terms of crimes or wars, the earthquakes that we experience, the famines that we hear about, so on and so forth. But in addition to all that, according to the Bible that I shared with you, Luke chapter 21 verse 11, from the very words, from the very mouth of Jesus who was here, he prophesied that towards the end of time, we call this time the last days, before the return of Jesus, there will be great earthquakes and in various places famines and pestilences. And if you go to Revelation chapters 14 and 15 and 13 and Revelation chapter 7 and other chapters, you hear about 144,000. There is a reference of how the four angels are holding the corners to prevent the wind. And when we say wind, we're referring to a destructive force or self-destructive force, that the angels are holding those four corners to prevent the wind from coming. And the reason for angels holding those four corners is to buy time for people to become part of 144,000. You know, I believe that's not a little number, because a couple of verses later it says the people who would be part of the 144,000, it's hard to count. It's too numerous that you cannot count. So I believe that 144,000 is a symbolic number describing who would receive the seal of God. And it talks about who will receive the seal of God, those who follow the commandments of God, and who has the testimony of Jesus, or who has the testimony of Jesus, the spirit of prophecy, as some will interpret, meaning that who has a special inspiration that Christ has given, and those who possess and who understands that special testimony that came from Jesus. So two, the one who's keeping the commandments of God, and the one who has the special message, the Spirit-led message, the testimony of Jesus. Additional inspiration coming from Jesus, that who are following the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So part of the 144,000 are those who are not only faithful in keeping the commandments of God, but secondly, who has received and following the guidance of the Holy Spirit in the form of a special testimony that came from Jesus. Okay, so the reason why the angels are holding the four corners is to give time for people to be receiving the seal of God. And who would receive the seal of God? Those who keep the commandments, who have a testimony of Jesus. And to give time for this to take place, the angels are holding the four corners, preventing the winds from coming. But when you go to Revelation 13 and 14 and so on, now you will hear about the 7 plagues. And at the next episode, I'm going to talk about what are the 7 plagues and at which time those 7 plagues will come. But once the 144,000 are sealed with the seal of God, the rest who would receive the mark of the beast now would reap or receive the 7 plagues. So in other words, Jesus was prophesying that during the last days, before his return, not only there will be earthquakes and famines, but there will be also pestilences, destructive pandemics such as the one that we're experiencing right now. You know, there's one book written by Ellen G. White, and Ellen G. White is considered as an inspired writer, and many believe her to be a prophetess, and she lived in the 19th century. But she wrote a very interesting she left very interesting quotes. And those quotes are put in the book called The Great Controversy. And The Great Controversy is the book that describes how the fight between good and evil will ensue and continue until the coming of Jesus, and until when those chosen, the faithful ones, will be in heaven with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But in the book that she wrote has a very interesting 2 paragraphs that describes what will happen. And as I was reading it, I was impressed, because I believe what was written is describing what is happening right now. I'm going to read it to you, and you tell me whether you agree with me or not. So, the book is called The Great Controversy, and if you're interested, I could share with you where you could find it. The book, there is an online, a digital book that you don't have to pay, you can simply download. So in the book, The Great Controversy, page 589, paragraph 2, it reads, Satan works through the elements also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls. He has studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature, and he uses all his power to control the elements as far as God allows. When he was suffered to afflict Job, how quickly flocks and herds, servants, houses, children were swept away, one trouble succeeding another as in a moment. It is God that shields his creatures and hedges them in from the power of the destroyer. And here the destroyer is none other than Satan. But the Christian world have shown contempt for the law of Jehovah, and the Lord will do just what he has declared that he would. He will withdraw his blessings from the earth and remove his protecting care from those who are rebelling against his law and teaching and forcing others to do the same. Satan has control of all whom God does not especially guard. He will favor and prosper some in order to further his own designs, and he will bring trouble upon others and lead men to believe that it is God who is afflicting them. Now, pay attention to the paragraph 3 on the page 589 of the book called The Great Controversy. And it reads, while appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease after disaster. Bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now he is at work in accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagration, in field tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes, in every place and in 1,000 forms. Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away his ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air, listen to this, he imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. The same kind of pestilence that is written or described in Luke chapter 21, verse 11. The Bible talks about the pestilences, and this inspired writing by Ellen G. White is also talking about this pestilence. She doesn't specify what that is, what is the name of the pestilence, but she clearly describes here what will happen. Again, it says, he, Satan, sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air, a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast. The earth mourneth and faded away. The haughty people do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Isaiah chapter 24, verses 4 and 5. Now, page 590, paragraph 1, it reads, and then the great deceiver will persuade men that those who serve God are causing these evils. The class that have provoked the displeasure of heaven will charge all their troubles upon those whose obedience to God's commandment is a perpetual reproof to transgressors. It will be declared that men are offending God by the violation of the Sunday Sabbath, that this sin has brought calamities which will not cease until Sunday observance shall be strictly enforced, and that those who present the claims of the fourth commandment, thus destroying reverence for Sunday, are troublers of the people, preventing their restoration to divine favor and temporal prosperity. Thus the accusation urged of old against the servant of God will be repeated, and upon grounds equally well established. And it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim. 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 17 and 18. As the wrath of the people shall be excited by false charges, they will pursue a course towards God's ambassadors very similar to that which apostate Israel pursued toward Elijah. Okay, what did I just read? So the title of, or the thought that I have started with is such kind of pandemic now we're experiencing, coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic. something like this that is happening, which is unprecedented, precedented. Is this something that is prophesied in the Bible, that things such as what we're experiencing right now would happen? And the answer, as I share from the Bible, yes, the Bible talks about pestilence, which will happen towards the end of time, before the return of Jesus. And another book that I just read, The Inspired Writing of Ellen G. White, The Great Controversy, clearly describes how Satan will taint air and contaminate many. And as a result of it, the cities will be ruined and many people will perish. And at the end, when this is over, I wouldn't be surprised that people will try to find out why this all happened and try to blame who they can find to accuse and say, you are responsible for all this disaster that we just experienced. So the purpose of me sharing this with you, as I summarize, is for 3 reasons. Number 1, according to the Bible, what is happening right now is something that has been prophesied by Jesus. Things that are happening is something that has been prophesied, almost 2,000 years ago, as what will need to take place before the return of Jesus Christ. So, could there other outbreaks like this that we're experiencing right now? Unfortunately, I have to say, according to the Bible, yes, it could happen again. And I pray that this will not get any more worse than what it is already, because it's already affecting so many lives, and so many lives were lost. And my deepest condolences to everyone who lost their loved ones and their family members. It's such a devastating experience. I have to tell you that I was in Europe just last Thursday. I left Washington Dulles Airport last Wednesday. And as I was flying, first I went to Amsterdam and then Edinburgh in Scotland, UK. When I landed, as I was about to disembark from the plane, a person who was sitting next to me, and he was also traveling from US, he said, "Have you heard?" And I said, "What? I didn't hear. What did you hear?" He said, President Trump's made the announcement that midnight, Friday night, that people from 26 countries, except the UK, would not be allowed to come to US. And people who are coming from the regions affected by coronavirus, they have to, when they come back, they will be asked to be in self-quarantine for 14 days, okay? That is to happen Friday night, midnight. When I arrived in Edinburgh, it was Thursday morning. My plan, the plan of my trip to Europe was that I am to spend a few days in Edinburgh and then go to Budapest in Hungary, and then later to Helsinki in Finland. This was to be about 2 weeks trip. But on Thursday, after hearing of the announcement, I was told that I am to return home immediately. The place where I work, they have made a voted action that those who are traveling should return home immediately. So I was panicking, and I was trying to look for a ticket, and thankfully I found this one ticket and it said this is the last ticket. So I paid more than what I would usually pay. I paid one way, and I left early Friday morning, so I only spent one night in Edinburgh, and my trip was cut short. And I landed in the evening, or close to the evening, on Friday last week, and I only have a few hours before midnight. And as I was coming and passing the immigration officer who was asking me questions asked me the question, have you been to China? Have you been to Italy? Have you been to Iran? Okay. I was surprised that he didn't ask, have you been to South Korea? It seems like things are getting better. Still a serious and dire situation all over the world, also in Korea. So when I said no, and she didn't ask me any follow-up questions, and she simply let me go. But since I arrived home, later I heard that people who came after midnight were asked, especially those who are coming from Europe, were asked to self-quarantine. So I have decided to also self-quarantine myself. So since the arrival last Friday, and today is Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 nights, I have been, you know, sleeping by myself, and wearing this mask and trying to stay away from my family, because if I have anything, especially coronavirus, the last thing that I want is to transmit to my, family members. It's also affecting me in a very personal way, because I could see how people are disturbed by everything that is happening right now, and the people's hearts are growing cold towards each other. I mean, I'm sure you heard about, there was one article news article from CNN, how this coronavirus pandemic is bringing worst out of all of us. I mean, if you go to some of the retailer or grocery shops or retailer stores, that you realize that you'll not be able to find tissue papers and water, because people have taken, because they're stockpiling, because they're worried and afraid that this outbreak will continue to create devastation. It's already doing that they will not have enough supplies for their daily needs. Now, I'm afraid to even go and look at the latest news, because every time when you feel that you can't go any worse than this, it can't get any worse than this, you're surprised that in today's society, with all the technological advancement, can you imagine that some people are simply left to die because you don't have enough hospital seats? I mean, we're not living in 16th or 17th centuries. We're living in the 21st century with the technological advancement, with the AI and all that technological advancement and medical advancements that you could imagine. At one point, it sounded like it's sci-fi fiction that it will never happen, but it is happening. The technological advancement is allowing our life to enhance in many different ways, and we have never been this efficient and this proficient yet. This one outbreak started by coronavirus, which we refer to now as COVID-19, which now became a pandemic. Now it's causing some of the most developed countries to unable to provide hospital care that we all deserve, and simply left to die because there's too many of those people who've been infected by the coronavirus. Why is this happening? I believe that what is happening right now was already prophesied prophesied in the Bible. And for that reason, we need to understand why Jesus gave that prophecy. Why did he bother to tell us what will happen, including famines and pestilences? Hey, when you see all these things happen around you, remember, that's when you need to be even more serious, because the time is near. My coming is near. It is not to cause us to live in faith or fear. I mean, all these signs, the fulfillments of the signs, the earthquakes, the famines, the rumors of wars, the pestilences, people's heart growing cold, the increase of wars and rumors of wars, the murders and the crimes and all kinds of this self-destructive things that are happening in this time among so-called civilized people. Why? Because this is a phenomenon that will continue to happen. This destructive, self-destructive behaviors and actions. And you know what? I'm not surprised that people are believing in the doomsday theory, that if this earth is left and there's no intervention, that time will come that will simply destroy ourselves. We also know that there are more than enough nuclear weapons that can, destroy the earth completely many, many times. So some of you may have heard of the tsunami that happened in Japan, and the nuclear plant, the waves have destroyed it, and the radiation has been coming out of it, and some people are concerned of the effect that it will have for the people who are not living in this Fukuoka, this area where the nuclear plant is, but they're also worried about other athletes who may come to Japan and be affected by this radioactive materials. I want to believe what has been shared, that this negative effect will be minimum, but I'm just using this as an example along with all that are happening. We had episodes of similar outbreaks, like SARS outbreak, MERS outbreaks, HIV, Ebola. I was in Congo, and I would not forget the experience that I had when I was crossing the border. I don't know whether it was from Rwanda or which country exactly, but I was crossing the border. At the same time, there were soldiers from Ukraine, UN soldiers, to go and relieve and to secure the facilities that were caring for patients. Why all these? Why all those outbreaks and pestilences? Again, it's because Satan, a force of all evil and destruction. For those Christians who believe in the Bible know what he did to Job, how he brought pestilence to him, and he was physically affected, and not only he lost his loved ones, and all of the properties, the cattle that he had was taken away, just in such a short period of time. And Satan, who is the originator of destruction, sin and destruction, the devastation. Thankfully, the four angels, of course, God, in his mercy and grace, he made sure that the evil forces, the destructive forces, the winds, are not to fall upon us to this earth, by having his angels protect. Why? For the sake of those who are faithful to God, who is faithfully keeping his commandments, right? Who have made the choice, or who is about to make that eternal choice of following Jesus forever and be faithful to God in following his Bible, his will, and his will is clearly inscribed, in the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, and to protect those who are choosing to follow Jesus faithfully, follow God faithfully, His command, and to observe His commandment faithfully. He is delaying this destructive forces from coming, but as time is nearing, as those who are to be part of this group, 144,000, who receive the seal of God, once every one of them, every single person who is to be saved by the precious blood of Jesus, once that happens, the angels who are holding the four corners will let go. And we'll see increase of the signs that were described by Jesus, and those signs that are clearly written in the Bible, in Matthew chapter 24, in Luke, as I shared earlier with you, and now in Revelation. So, as I wrap it up, I just want you to think about the fact that what is happening, even if it's uncontrollable from our point of view, and it's scary that it is getting out of control. We thought that we had controlled this coronavirus, but I'm scared that the numbers continue to increase. And soon, unfortunately, there will be more known cases of coronavirus in Europe. But if Europe can be affected like that, what about other regions? What about other regions that have not been affected by this coronavirus yet? That thought scares me. And for that reason, I think we need to pray that God will continue to extend His mercy and grace. That the same angels who are holding the four corners will hold on to those four corners even longer, so that those who choose to be faithful to God will not be negatively affected. But what is comforting when you study the Bible, especially Revelation, that at the end, as we are nearing, God will not leave those faithful ones to suffer, but He will protect them, and He will come to deliver them and rescue them. So as this coronavirus is changing the way how we are living, certainly it has affected my life for the last few days. We've been told to work from home for the next 2 weeks, and we've been told that social distancing is important. I may not be able to visit any of my family members except my immediate family, or hang out with friends, which I enjoy, or even go to church to worship. The church where I usually attend, the church where I attend every Saturday. Yes, I go to church on Saturday because I believe, according to the fourth commandment, that's the day that you should worship, the seventh day. The Bible said, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy, the fourth commandment. I believe it's an important commandment. So I go to church on Saturday instead of the first day of the week, which is Sunday. But even my church closed down out of the fear of cross-contamination or infection. And who knows that I may not be able to go back to the church, because church may not be open until after 2 or 3 weeks, even longer. But certainly that will give me a chance for me to reflect on why all this is happening. In times like this, we're not to be fearful, but be reflective, and to understand that even this, God foretold us. Not that we would feel that things are getting out of control, but Jesus clearly spoke to us and said, expect this. It's almost like parents are saying to their children, while they're going away for a trip, and saying to children, I'll be gone for a little while, but I'm coming back. But before we come back, don't be surprised that you will have some hardships, some difficulties, some challenges. But don't lose hope, because we will come back. But the reason why we're telling you, children, is when hard things happen to you, we don't want you to lose hope or get scared. But remember what we are telling you. Yes, we will leave. Your mommy and daddy will leave, but we'll come back. But while we're away, you will have some challenging times. But don't worry. Yes, it will be very difficult and challenging, but I'm not going to let you suffer too long or for anyone to harm you, because I am coming back to take care of you, to deliver you. For that reason, about 2,000 years ago, Jesus, who loved us so much that made him abandon everything, leave everything behind. He's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He left everything. He was born and laid in a manger. Can you imagine? The first thing that, as he was delivered, as now the senses are coming alive, can you imagine? It's not a pleasant smell that stimulates his senses, but this awful smell, because he came to this earth, surrounded by animals. But he came because he loved us so much. And after spending 33.5 years, after 3.5 years of his earthly ministry, after giving his life on the cross, after that, on the third day he resurrected, and having shared clearly to the disciples what to expect before his return, because he said, I'm going to go back to where I came from, but I will come back to take you home. As they were anxious, worried, and saying to their teacher, Lord, teacher, we don't want to leave you. We don't want you to leave us. We want you to stay here with us forever. Jesus said, no, I have to go, because I have to go and prepare a place for you. But once I prepare a place for you, I'll come and take you so that you be where I am, and there we will be together forever. So they're saying, then tell us what will be the signs that we should look for just before your coming. And as he was describing those signs, as he was prophesying what would happen, he was talking about those natural calamities and disasters, and he spoke about pestilence. So we can have one of two attitudes. I mean, with everything that is happening around us, we could lose our courage, our faith, and just live every day, wondering how things will get even worse tomorrow than today, and look at the gloomy future and wonder when our earth will self-destroy itself. Or you could say, these are the signs foretold by Jesus. And as we see these signs being fulfilled, this is another clear indication that Jesus' coming is imminent, and we must be ready for his return. So, as I end this recording. I would like to wish everyone all the best, especially people who are hardest hit. China, South Korea, Italy. I think there is those who've been affected in China. I believe there's 60 or 70% of all those who've been infected by coronavirus. But now, next to that, Italy, the number in Italy is skyrocketing. In Iran, in Spain, in Germany, in France, and even in Portugal and other countries. As you are dealing with this, I pray that God will draw near to all of us, including United States. Now it has already become thousands, and this number will only increase even more before it subsides, according to what has been reported for the last couple of days. But let's not lose hope. Let's anchor our trust in our God, the creator of all things, and depend on him. His coming is near, and if we're suffering, the pain, the agony, if there's a one person who could identify with us, is none other than Jesus, who went through the suffering by himself. So be of good courage. God said he will never leave us or forsake us. And thank you for watching, and I hope that this message would encourage you and comfort you, and at the end, as we place our trust in God, that we may find peace in Jesus. So God bless you, and until we see you again, let us faithfully follow Jesus and embrace the mission that God has given us, and that we can go and share the love of Jesus, so we can change this world for it to be a better place for us to live. God bless you, and take care. Bye-bye.